Hello YouTube. I'm here with a little interesting video. It's something that I might not talk about very often, but I do quite regularly use a handheld. And I don't see too much content on the internet about Warframe on a handheld, so I thought I would provide a bit of that. So to mention specifically, you might be able to see the counter up in the top. Now this is actually running SteamOS. So this is an Ally X running SteamOS. And one of the features they added relatively recently is the ability to use performance profiles. And as you can see here, I'm running it in the performance mode. If you check out the other options, it's either balanced or low profile for those that can't read backwards. Uh, this is a very rudimentary setup, and it's not going to look as smooth as it actually is on the device. Uh, Coming from someone that runs a pretty high-end desktop, I've got a 9800X3D and a 4090, and I've pretty much had cutting-edge hardware since 2013. This is such an extremely good experience that it's hard to describe without just telling you this is more than acceptable. Uh, so if you've considered getting an Ally X, even in today's, even with the new ones coming out, even with the Z2 Extreme versions coming out, I would say if you can find a really good deal on an Ally X and then run SteamOS on it instead, this is really good. So I went to a relay because relays are some of the most intense areas I found when it comes to just easy sit there and notice it. The other one is probably 1999 zones, the Hulvania zones. So I go to relay 69, which is pretty populated, and the frame rate variability is dependent on where you're positioned. So this is some of the testing that I do when I do hardware testing in this game that I've done for since 2013 is you reduce some of the draw calls and mitigate the impact that the CPU or the limitation that the CPU puts on it. So right here, we're getting almost 120 frames per second. I'd say this game reliably runs between 60 and 120 on this hardware. And then what we'll do is we'll drop to balanced, which occurs real time. You can now see the frame rate dropping. Still not bad. And then we'll go to low power. So you notice it's dropped down quite considerably. Limitation of only giving the CPU 2 watts. If we take it from here, we just go back to the high performance or the performance mode. Notice the immediate increase in CPU wattage draw, but then also the frame rate. So this game gets very CPU limited, and SteamOS helps dramatically improve the quality of the experience. But even out of most of the games that I played on this, Warframe does do the best out of, I would say, all of them. All of the sort of live service games that I do play on my handhelds. I did have a Steam Deck OLED before this one as well, or I guess simultaneously. I ended up giving that to my brothers for him to use. But yeah, this is a very, very good experience. So what I'll do is we'll leave. This doesn't show the stability of the frame rate just the way I'm recording it. It's a little quite rudimentary setup. So I wouldn't take how it perceives your camera as gospel. I'm quite snobby on hardware. I've been running G-Sync, like G-Sync since 2014 when you had to buy a dev kit from NVIDIA in order to get it. And then right now my main monitor that I actually play on is a 4K 240 hertz display, and so I'm quite snobby when it comes to performance on hardware. And the fact that this is acceptable to me is, I wouldn't say acceptable, but very tolerable is pretty good. This setup's a little awkward, just to forewarn you, but I am also not nearly as good on a handheld as I am on my desktop. Trying also to make sure I keep this in frame. There were periods where I played nothing but on a handheld, and there's also a period of 6 months where I ran this with an eGPU. Been something I've played with for years. Something If you notice in the background of most of my other videos, I actually have a Razer Core, and that's an original 2016 Razer Core when I first bought that device. And that's how long I've been testing these. You can probably also, if you've noticed, I've got a 7900 XT in the background just waiting for SteamOS to get support to be able to start using that. Since my 4090 is no longer has a shroud on it to be able to transplant between devices, since I had to de-shroud it and do a little bit of mods on it to fit it in a Fractals line ridge. And not recommended if you want to ever resell it. I don't think I'll actually go through a whole mission here, but just looking at the frame rate, we're in performance mode. I didn't start at 100% battery on this, but you kind of see some of the values on there. Performance overall, very good. SteamOS does help improve. Before they added these power profiles, we'll change that and we'll see. I'd say this is the most intense zone that you can possibly get that gets very CPU limited, even on a 9800 X3D, or the 7950 X3D I had before that, or the 5800 X3D I had before that. It's a very hardware limited zone, and it's even when you throw the best hardware at it, it's still a problem. We'll go to low power. Yeah, you can see here, this is where you run into that CPU limitation. Go back to performance. Try not to die as well while we're doing this. Luckily, I'm running my shield version of this build, and my Sentinel is being a genocidal maniac. So here, it's not too bad. This, I'd say, the usual 60 to 120 I see, this is on the low side for that. I am running this game in pretty much all medium, so I'll actually show that before I forget. So I don't cap frame rates because I don't like that in general. It bugs out a lot of stuff. Some of these settings are preference, but FSR 2.2, I usually use quality. Quality, I don't go lower than quality, even on DLSS. And then you can see pretty much all medium. Disabling a lot of those other features because those just suck. It's a pretty basic setup. The Steam Deck, like the Steam Deck I think it's mostly the Steam Deck preset because that works pretty well. And that looks good on the Steam Deck too. If you've wondered about the Steam Deck OLED, this game runs really well, but Hovania 1999 zones are even worse on that when it comes to the frame rate discrepancies. This is also part of what I use to get experience on controllers, because there's some stuff that doesn't work well in controllers. I don't actually own a controller. I think I haven't owned a controller, like an actual controller, since 2013 or so, 2014. And so this is my experience with a controller. They do have extra strength for the board, so this is a little bit more powerful than usual for that reason. I thought that the Roar build, like the Roar Radio Javelin build, would be a little bit annoying to run on this, but I haven't run into that problem. I think because you're able to hybrid your gameplay a little bit between ranged and melee, that this is quite nice. Oh yeah, I don't think I'll be able to kill that leech one. with this setup, like with this physical setup, that's a little bit more difficult to use to try to get the recording. I didn't want to record this from the device itself so that you could see some of the overlays, and I would have to figure out how to get recording off of SteamOS, so I don't want to do that. Did we get an accolade? Mission progress. There we go. A lot of the same things I talk about, you can still do in a controller. I'm not nearly as good at it, but I think when you learn the skill, I was surprised at how easily when I started using a handheld and using a controller. Once again, basically, it was first time using a handheld was the first time I ever used a controller playing this game, since I didn't start playing this game until after I full switched to PC. There you go. Yeah, if you're curious about the performance and the quality, I would say highly recommended. It really is it has impressed me, especially SteamOS. SteamOS, if you have one of these and you're not going to use it docked, eGPU support does not exist right now. If you're not going to use it docked, then I highly recommend using SteamOS on the LIX, especially now that you get performance profiles. So yeah, thanks for watching.